This is the Impressions Exchange Podcast. Where all topics impacting the graphic imaging and printing industry are addressed via in-depth news coverage, analysis, and timely interviews.
Hi, I'm Denise Gustavson, Editorial Director for Printing United Alliance, and the guest host for the special Printing Impressions podcast series in celebration of Women's History Month, highlighting the women in the printing industry. During this series, I'll have the opportunity to talk with women from all segments of the industry about their experiences and their journey as a woman in the printing industry. So today, it is my pleasure to welcome Morgan Sprengel. She's the VP of Customer Success with Hatteras. So Morgan, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Denise. It's great to be here.
To kind of get us started, why don't we get some background? Can you tell me a little bit about what you do as VP of Customer Success and then kind of a little bit of what Hatteras does?
Absolutely. So at Hatteras, I oversee our client services team. So everything from customer service, production, estimating, and purchasing, working really closely with our sales force to make sure that when there's a new opportunity, we're putting the right team around them to support them onboarding the customer, making sure we're understanding their expectations from a brand guidelines perspective, a overall workflow perspective, to make sure from start to finish, we're kind of meeting and exceeding their expectations and making it as smooth as possible, for our customers. So I'm a solid crossover between client facing and operations. So involved with the day-to-day with our operations team, kind of putting the finesse on what our customers need, but also taking into account what our operations team needs in order to meet our timelines for our customers.
That's a fun balance, to say the least.
It sure is. Sometimes I'm like, okay, what team am I on? Where am I at? It's definitely a juggle, but I love it. And it's great because working with our customers, you still have that client-facing approach where you're working with them, trying to solve their business problems and bring their ideas to life, but then also being able to execute internally. It keeps it, there's never a dull moment, I'll say that.
And honestly, that's good because there's some jobs you go in, it's literally the same thing day after day. I don't think I could do that.
No, absolutely.
I like the variety. So I completely understand why you're so passionate about it too, because there's something different every day. It's a challenge every day.
Absolutely. And I say, I've only been in print for 7 years, but every day I'm learning something new. When I have some new team members come in and they start to learn the business, they're like, how am I ever going to figure this out? This is all so foreign to me. And I'm like, well, just when you think you're coming to me for some answers, I said, I'm fine. I'm learning as I go. And every day there's a new challenge that you're going to learn something new that you never thought you would consider or learn within that moment. So it definitely keeps you on your toes.
It certainly does. So you've been in print for 7 years. Was all of that at Hatteras or it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
So September will be 7 years for me. I joined Hatteras in 2016, shortly after graduating from Towson University. So I studied marketing and advertising and wasn't really sure where I wanted to go and where I was going to land. So I moved back to New Jersey from Baltimore and just started exploring some options. And someone from Hatteras reached out for a sales position. And I was like, all right, I have no idea what print is, but I'll go in and talk to them. It's an opportunity. Let's get my foot in the door. And after a couple of rounds of interviews, I was brought in as a sales executive and started learning the business. And, after a few short months, they're like, all right, you ready to go, go sell. And I'm like, I don't know. It's not me. I need to know things from the inside out before I hit the ground running. I want to know how this was made and what we did to get it out the door before I go and sell something. And, what was awesome about that is at the time I was reporting to the marketing manager and then of course the president of the company, Bill Dora, and they're like, no, we understand that, what do we need to do to make sure that you're set up for success here? And I spent almost a year and a half spending time in every department at Hatteras through prototyping and EPP, through the digital press room, offset press room, bindery, shipping, to the point where the shipping manager was like, we'll keep her. We really like her. And Bill's like, no. She's got to move on to the next department. But it was just such a unique experience. I got to know all the key team players internally. It wasn't just, oh, here's another salesperson that's coming in to learn the business. It's like, oh no, this is Morgan and she wants to know the business. She wants to know what happens. I just became really passionate about just knowing more and asking questions and being curious everywhere I went. That led me into more of an account management role because I knew more that I actually needed to go sell. And I found myself more comfortable inside supporting our sales team members. I served in an account manager role for a couple years. And then as I started to evolve, I just found myself like wanting to know more, asking a lot of questions. And that led me to overseeing our customer service team. So I took over the role of director of customer service. And then kind of through COVID and as things evolved within our team, again, I just remained curious and asked questions and showed that I just wanted to be more. I just always want to be more than just myself. Like, how can I do outside my hula hoop? You know, some days I'm like, it's good to stay in my hula hoop and just get what I need to get done. But I always find myself going outside of it and wanting to come up with solutions and work with different people in the company to help make it a better place for everyone. So over the last couple of years, I've evolved into this role as VP of Customer Success, and I love it. You know, I touch many aspects of the business every day, whether it's the front office with the admin team, making sure that our customers have a great experience when they walk in the door, or, you know, coming up with a unique die line to help win a project for a pharmaceutical launch. You know, like it runs the gamut, but it kind of keeps me going every day. And it's an interesting path, because if you asked me 7 years ago when I graduated with a marketing degree, like, would you be in print? The answer is no, because I didn't even know what print was. I remember coming into my interview being like, oh gosh, what do I have to know for this? You know, like what questions are they going to ask me? So I just kind of put the hat on, like, I'm going to come in and be myself and see where it takes me. And I mean, I will say, without the leadership here and the people supporting me, it wouldn't have been possible, but it definitely takes some of those intangibles to kind of grow within this industry, I've found, and I absolutely love it. But you have to want it deep down and just have that drive to kind of dig deeper beyond, okay, this is my current role, but what else is out there for me to, you know, get myself into. So
it's always interesting to hear how people got involved in the market. Another conversation I had, the one woman, she said, you get into the market one of two ways. You're either born into it because your family is in printing, or you stumble into it and then you realize that this is like your calling in a way.
It's almost like in my blood, like it gets me going, you know, and it's so funny because you're right. Like a lot of events I'll go to, like they'll be like, oh, like, is your father on the company? I'm like, no, like I stumbled into this. And now it's almost like at Hatteras, everyone becomes so close, but also, as you know, like within the print industry, you spend so much time doing what you're doing, you know, and you're always available. Like us being on the East Coast, you know, we have customers on the West Coast. You know, I would never not take a call from my customer, because if they're calling, there's something they need from me and there's a way I can add value and help. So it's just always being available. And that's definitely unique about our business. You know, like I'll go home sometimes and people are like, oh, shut it down. I'm like, no, you can't. You just can't. But you have to be willing to do that, because it's not your normal 9 to 5. You know, it's being available often and being flexible with whatever comes your way. And like for me, when people are like, oh, you didn't have family, because there's a lot of people here that like, oh, my uncle was in the business and I graduated and I needed a job and I just became a bindery foreman, you know, like that's kind of like their walk of life. And what I get excited about is a lot of people here now, of more of like our up and comers, they were on the same path as me, you know, graduated college, really didn't know what they were getting themselves into, and just applied for a position. And I think with Hatteras, what we try to do is, since I've had my journey through the company, is like use that as like a mini case study internally. Like, okay, this works, like it's proven, like, but we have to take the time. So what we try to do is do like recruiting classes where with sales reps, like we'll bring in, you know, 4 or 5 at a time, or account managers bring in a group at a time so we can put them through the paces. But Bill and I spend a lot of time training and onboarding them just to make sure that they get, you know, a very similar experience that I received, because we know, you know, it's proven to work, and having the knowledge within roles like that really does help when you're working with your customers. So
yeah, it gives you the confidence that you can speak and you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think in a way for women, that's even more important than it is for a guy or a man, because there's so many men in the industry, you know, and unfortunately, you know, traditionally people sometimes in those roles, they always turn to the guy because, oh, he must know what he's talking about.
Right.
But for you to have that experience, to go through all the departments, you've learned it, you've earned it, you know it, you have that confidence. You can speak confidently about every aspect of the business, whatever it is.
Right. And like I said, like I don't know everything and I still have so much to learn, but I knew if I wanted to move into more of a manager and leadership position within, I had to become knowledgeable about the product and be able to add value. You know, I want to be able to speak knowledgeable at the table when an issue arises. I want to be able to provide solutions. And that has taken some time because, you know, I was a young 22-year-old girl who graduated college that was just excited to start a job and like dress professionally and show up to work and kind of make a name for myself. And then I'm like, whoa, like I'm in a big, you know, big pond, little fish, right? And being a young woman coming into that, like it was intimidating because it is a male dominated industry. And I do think that is changing, but there are a lot of people here that I think saw, you know, that I was interested and willing to take the time. And that's like a huge piece of advice I always tell people when they come into Hatteras, like male or female, like remain curious, ask questions, show them that you care, you know,
be the sponge.
We've all been in a situation where you're tasked to train someone, right? And they show up without a notebook, or they show up and don't ask a question and just kind of look at you with that blank stare, right? That person is taking time out of their day, whether they're a pressman, foreman, whether they're the bindery manager, whether they're creating prototypes, they're taking time out of their day to teach you something. If they see that, like, oh, wow, like this person really cares, like they're going to spend more time with you. And I think by doing that, I always reminded myself, like, their time is precious. If they're going to spend it with me, I want to make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where I was able to bridge the gap between my up and coming, you know, fresh out of school person to being someone that's like, oh, this is a manager, but this person really cares and they want to learn. So as I've evolved, I think just like showing that to my team has helped me, because I remember there's a couple times where you're in conversations and they're like, oh, she doesn't know any better. But then as you continue to express your interest and show that, like, no, I have a solution and it's going to work. And this is how we're going to do it. And then it works, you know, and it delivers. That's where I think, you know, you start to build those relationships and respect. And I think that's definitely a huge ticket when getting into something, whether it's the print industry or something else. Remaining curious and willing to learn will gain respect and support of those around you.
Definitely. And like, especially, you know, because you did that walk through all the departments, what I've found just in the industry as a whole is that if you are curious and interested, and they can see that, and that they can see it's actually like real. Most of the people in the printing industry are very passionate about what they do. They like what they do.
Yep.
And as soon as they see like that kindred spirit, they're like, oh, she's one of those people. And then they want to share even more with you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which is something I've just seen overall. I mean, I remember when I started in the industry as a journalist, it was 25 years ago, and I didn't know anything. And I mean, literally, my first interview was like, hi, I'm brand new. I have no idea what it was, like scanning technology. I'm like, I really have no idea. And they're like, oh, no problem. And literally an hour conversation, just explaining things and what they do. And I'm like, some of those people I still talk to 25 years later.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
It's just amazing the passion that they have and the willingness to share and help the new generations as they're coming up.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've seen a ton of that here, and I'm very appreciative, because some of those people that helped mentor me along the way, like they're not here anymore. You know, they've retired or they moved on. And I look back and I'm like, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing or where I am without those people. And a lot of them are still here. I'm excited now that I'm in a place where I'm able to help mentor and develop people as well. Because there's a lot of, specifically women, there's a lot of women here that are capable more than what they're currently doing. There's so much more than just their current role. And I know they have it in them, but just empowering them to make decisions and know that there's upward mobility within their role and opportunity for growth, I think has to remain top of mind so that they feel that support.
Yeah, the potential is there and you can see it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Now, do you have any favorite stories? I mean, obviously you've been there 7 years. Is there any favorite stories that you have from your work life that you'd be willing to share to help, to help illustrate some of the things we've been talking about?
Favorite stories. Let's see. I don't know why this one just popped into my mind. It's pretty funny. So when I was learning print
Hmm.
committee, I'm like, I need to know it from the inside out, outside in, every which way. I need to know everything. Right. So I was in an account manager role and the sales rep was out. So my boss said, all right, well, you're going to go up to Florham Park and you're going to deliver these proofs and you're going to go over it with the customer and you're going to be fine. And I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, this is my first time riding solo. And they're like, no, you're going. I'm like, all right, here goes nothing. So I take the trip up, go up with the proofs, and I sit down, and I could tell right away this guy was a little bit older that I was meeting with. And when I walked
Hmm.
in, he did not expect me to be there. He was expecting the sales rep. And he looked at me and he was like, um, you're you're with Hatteras? I was like, yes, Morgan Sprengel, nice to meet you. I like knew right away. I'm like, I gotta just look him straight in the eyes, be confident, and deliver why I'm there. Of course, my palms are sweating. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I go in with the proofs, and I have my color proofs, and I sit down, and his first question to me is, what proofing equipment do you use? And I'm like, oh no, like he's totally just trying to pull, like,
Yep.
show me that I don't know what I'm talking about. And I remember I danced around the question, and all of a sudden, like, it came over me, like, these are Epsons. We use these Epson proofing equipment. And it just rolled off the tongue, right? But like in my head, I'm like, he is trying to challenge me because I'm a young woman coming in with proofs. He wasn't expecting me. I was
Hmm.
supporting a seasoned vet
Yep.
male sales rep at the time. And he didn't want to hear it from me. And I showed him, I'm like, no, we actually use Epson proofing equipment. These are Epsons we matched for color, and then I went into our color calibration. Like all of a sudden, it's just everything that I was trained on like weeks before started coming to me. But in that moment, I was terrified. I'm like, I knew, and going into it, I expected that. That's why I was so nervous. But it was just funny because never in my life have I ever gone to a meeting since then in the last 6 years where somebody's like, oh, what kind of proofing equipment do you use? Or what proofing paper is this? But the second he saw me walk in the door and, he knew, like, how am I going to challenge this young woman who's walking in the door that's, selling me print and is going to try to sell me on this color right now.
Hmm.
I don't know why that's one that pops in my head, but it was definitely just such a funny situation because
Yep.
he was challenging me for who I was. And thank goodness I thought quick on my feet and was able to kind of sort through the conversation. But
But
it
that's
was
where your
that
training came in.
absolutely. It was my training. And also, like, I'll never forget it,
Yeah.
and I now use that story in my training sessions. Like, you're going to have a content proof and a color proof. And this is where they're output from. And this is the equipment that we use. And it's a training conversation for me because I say, I hope that no one goes deliver color proofs and someone asks you this question because it's not really relevant, right? But, you never know what's going to come your way. And you just have to always be prepared to either own the fact that, hey, I don't know the answer to that question. Let me call my team really quick, or be able to think quick on your feet and give an answer
Hmm.
back. So,
And
um,
honestly, in some ways, maybe it was because you were a woman that he challenged you about knowing the technology, but it could have also be a young man that came in and he probably could have done the same thing. It could have been just the youth part of it as well.
absolutely. It was totally the youth because
Yeah.
it's not normal, to see a younger person in the print industry. And I think that's definitely changing. A lot of the people that we're recruiting for account managers, sales, even production positions, they're new knowledge. Like, we have an opportunity to develop them into whatever they want to become, but they're still young. And that isn't the norm, within our industry. People were going to school for print. People were going to trade school. People knew print from the inside out because their family was in print.
Yep.
Where now, I have people that are reaching out to me because of what I'm posting on LinkedIn or what I'm posting on Instagram and saying, hey, what do you do? It looks like you love your job. Like, what do you do? And I'm like,
Mhm.
come talk to me. Like, I'll tell you all about it. And it was December of this year, I took out some of my team to dinner for the holidays. And we were sitting there and I was looking around the table and I was like, oh my gosh, there's 10 of us at this table. 9 of them were people that I knew from high school, knew through family friends, knew through mutual friends that reached out and was like, hey, what do you do? I want to learn more. I see you have an account manager position. What does that entail? What does that mean? And I was like, it was a really proud moment because I'm like, I know I'm passionate about what I do. Like I get mail and I get packages at home and I'm like, look how this was made. You see how this folds over? Everyone's like, Morgan, we don't care, but thanks for sharing, like I know
Yep.
I'm passionate about it. But then when it starts to kind of attract people of similar interests and skill sets that I know align with Hatteras' culture and kind of who we are and what we want to attract, like that gets me so excited. Like I was so proud sitting there like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. None of these people had a print background. And the only one who didn't was like, yeah, but you were reaching out to me on LinkedIn for two years, you and Bill. And I'm like, guilty, like I want the best people. I want the best people around us. And it was a really cool moment because I'm like, it's all about kind of what you put out there and you'll attract, the people that deserve to be here and that want to be here and that we want supporting our customers and everyone at Hatteras.
So you've officially hit print nerd status, apparently.
A nerd, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, my husband has to deal with me every time we go out. I'm looking at end caps. I'm looking at, everything. Oh, that was a really bad job. They really didn't ship that correctly. The ends curled on the foam core, or that's not lined up correctly, or, oh, this is an awesome thing. Did you feel this, and my husband just rolls his eyes. He's like, yes, dear.
And it's funny because 7 years ago, I would never have thought like looking at like POP or, a folding carton that I get with my mascara inside of it. I would never have looked at that and said, oh, this is print. It didn't click for me. I knew it came from somewhere, but I had no idea where it came from. And now like being able to tell that story to the people around me to be like, this is what we do. Like,
yeah,
that's when
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, honestly, print is so ubiquitous in the industry that when people ask me, well, what industry do you cover? I'm like, well, I cover print. And you get the print.
Yeah.
Really? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, time out. Hang on. Just think about your day. Yeah. You wake up, you go brush your teeth, your toothpaste tube, the box it came in. Yeah. You go get breakfast, the cereal box, the milk, and I'm like, just start thinking about as you're walking through your day, how many times are you touching something that has been printed?
Absolutely.
And then the light bulb goes on about, by the time I hit lunch, you go out to lunch, you see signs, you see this, that, the other thing. Oh, print's big.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
And it's everywhere. But most people they don't equate it. And especially, I think, even a lot of the younger generations, it's just always been there.
Right. Like you don't know life without it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if you, I always say packaging is never going away because I don't think they're going to figure out a way to put milk in another type, it has to be in a container of some type or sort. Right. So we're always going to have packaging. We're always going to have print in some way or shape or form. But, what are we doing with it? And it's just the creative aspect of it is always just so interesting to me.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think that's where like the passion comes in because when you find the right people that come into the business, it's like they become passionate about what they do. And then also the things that we produce and kind of how we support brands outside. Like it's not Hatteras, it's all the amazing brands that we support to help kind of like tell their brand story.
And then there's a certain innate pride that also comes from it because they can say, hey, I had a piece in doing that POP display, or, oh, that direct mail. Oh yeah, I helped do the die for that, or, whatever, maybe they just touched it in one way, but they now it's part of, they had a part in the whole project. And so there's a pride, and then that just helps with the passion and to get people talking about it.
Absolutely.
So, we've talked a lot about like, some of the lessons you've learned. What's the most important thing that you've learned in your career in printing?
I mean, yeah, it feels like I've been here forever, but it is short-lived and like, the life I have to live. But I mean, in my opinion, it's what I've learned is just don't stop, keep asking questions, remain curious and be passionate because it feels right. Like, some people will hold that back and be like, oh, I'm just going to show up to work and do my job. And that's good for some people. But for those that kind of have the fire within them to be more than just what they're showing up to do every day, like share that, vocalize that, speak to your managers. I know I'm in this position today because of the leadership that was above me and that helped me get here. Right. whether it was Bill or different, we had, different mentors that have come in for professional development and leadership development that like would sit me down and be like, I can tell you want more,
Mm-hmm.
where do you see yourself in 5 years? And just kind of keep pushing the limits of what's possible. Because I mean, when I started here, there was the VP of customer success role did not exist. Like this wasn't a title that I was like, oh, I want to be that someday.
Yeah.
It was developed. There was no customer service manager when I started here. We've developed that, right? And now I have some pretty awesome people within those roles supporting me and my team and Hatteras as a whole that really wouldn't have been there if we didn't keep pushing the boundaries of like, no, like we need someone leading this team with this type of mindset. My team now, like the person that's in my customer director of customer service role, Charlie, like she's a rock star and she was an account manager. And I think we make the mistake all the time of like, oh, they're good at that, so they could be a manager. And like, that is not the case. And she's been in the industry and she's been at a couple of different companies. She has that perspective. And I always say to her, I'm like, she's a mentor to me more than she even realizes it. And and she reports to me, but
Mm-hmm.
it's because she had that perspective from a different walk of life outside of Hatteras. So to me, it's like just continuing to kind of push what's currently the current plan and think beyond it, because there is opportunity. And even if the position doesn't exist, like if there's a need for it and it's proven that it's going to help grow the company, support our customers better, like they're going to create like my position was created. And I'm so appreciative of it because I know there was always a need to have someone that is operations focused and customer focused and can help bridge that gap. Because in my early years here, I always saw there was such a divide between customer service and sales and production and operations. It was like, oh,
They never talk to each other.
Right. And there was always a disconnect. And now we're kind of forcing that to become one and operate more cohesively rather than having the divide, which leads to problems in operations and manufacturing.
So, I mean, you've had a lot of different mentors. We've talked about all the different departments, all the people you've learned from. You're now a leader within Hatteras. How important do you feel it is to have women in those leadership positions, especially for those women that are just starting out?
I think it's definitely important to know that there's all different types of leaders here, right? Like I think having established positions with women in those roles is going to only help us grow.
Mm-hmm.
I think women kind of provide a perspective that is different than male's perspective. And it's not good, bad, or indifferent. It's just what I find is it's a little more sensitive to certain topics. And as we've grown our team, we have women in our HR department. We have women within our accounting department. It used to be very specific to different departments, not just here in general, right? But like now we have women across almost every team here. And to me, that's like that makes showing that like we've developed somebody from a sales trainee that wants to serve a bigger purpose as a leader, meaning myself, or like Geraldine, who came in as an account manager and proved herself and is now overseeing our entire customer service, like showing that there's opportunity for women here. And like our, ownership at Hatteras is huge supporters of that. Male or female, if you're willing to make this place better and help support the company and help us grow, like it doesn't matter who you are, like we want you on our team. And I think showing that there was opportunity for me, there's opportunity for many other managers here. There's opportunity for sales reps to grow as women. And it's exciting for me because there's a lot of powerful women on our team here, and it's only going to make us better in the future.
Very true. So as we're wrapping up, I have two other questions I wanted to ask you.
Sure.
We've talked a lot about, women and the role of women and the importance of print in our industry. What do you wish you could tell people about the printing industry or your career path that don't know anything about it? What would you want to really like tell them that they should know?
I would love to educate the youth sooner on the print industry. When I was going to college, I remember I'm going to go to school to be a nurse. I'm going to school to be a teacher. I'm going to school to be a speech pathologist. Okay. how do you know these are the things you want to do? Right. And I would absolutely love if we were able to educate up and comers sooner than graduating college looking for their first job, their foot in the door. Because there's so much to be passionate about here. And this is a career. And I don't think it's necessarily looked at one as like, oh, I'm going to go to school for printing. It's not a thing anymore, and I just wish we did a little bit more to bring it into whether it's career paths within college, high school, vocational school. Like we do a lot with that here at Hatteras. We, we'll give back to local high schools and work with like we just had a business and finance academy come through here, and it was all freshmen through seniors at a local high school that we taught them about the financial component of what we do. And then we taught them about the operations. And even as early as that, just to show them like there's jobs out there that you can go and it's a trade. And whether you want to be in manufacturing or more of a client services, account management role, like there's opportunity. And if the recruiter from Hatteras didn't reach out to me right out of school, like I would have never found myself here. And I just think there's a lot of opportunity within this industry that just younger generations aren't aware of.
And I'm wondering even if we need to start even earlier than high school. When are kids starting to view those, oh, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be a policeman, I want to be, a nurse, a doctor, whatever. They're developing that when they're much younger than that.
Right.
And it's interesting. One of my editors on our apparel book, she actually has 2 young kids in, just starting school, and they had an event locally for a screen printer. Her kids actually screen printed T-shirts and were so proud of themselves, and they're young. Is that something that we can do as an industry, is to have things and events or things that help to really educate the younger generation, right, even younger than high school, that this is fun, and broaden their world in a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it educates them at a younger age and just piques their interest. We definitely lack that right now. So.
We do. And my last question, what advice would you give to young women that are entering the printing industry?
Be strong and remain curious.
All right.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't think I would be doing what I'm doing if I didn't kind of have it in me to show up every day and not back down. There's a lot of things that could lead you to be discouraged from a knowledge standpoint, from just showing up and being in a new industry completely. And I think, just having that resilience deep in to say like, all right, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do what it takes to kind of end up where I know I belong is really the key to success across the board within this industry, because it's not easy and it is changing and there's challenges that pop up every day, and being able to bounce back from a tough situation or dive in when you need to help solve a problem, like that comes from somewhere inside, that it's one of those intangibles that you can't teach, and you got to have it and you got to want it. So I definitely think that's critical as you dive into a new industry, specifically the print industry.
Well, Morgan, thank you so much for the time that you spent today with us. Some really, really great stories, some really great advice. It was a pleasure chatting with you today.
Yes, thanks so much for having me.
All right, thanks again.
All right, bye-bye.